Welcome to Talking Giants presented by SeatGeek. I'm your host, Bobby Skinner, here with my co-host, Justin Pennick. We got ourselves a Mailbag podcast, Justin. I got notes on notes on notes. I hate to say it. But when the Giants are losing, the best part of the week is the Mailbag pod. Because we bust narratives, we tell the truth, we got full film review, full stats analysis, takes, looking into the future, Justin. I hate to say it, but it is the best part of the week when the Giants are losing.
Yeah, obviously prefer them to win. Obviously prefer them to even if they're losing, like earlier in the year, to let them be in a spot where it's like, oh, there's positives here, there's positives there. They're in a football game, but yeah, you're right. Because this is the time to bust narratives and shit like that. But I don't blame the fan base for being done and angry and just dejected with the team right now. So even if there's some takes out there that are a little cuckoo, I don't blame it because, this team
Blame the Giants.
It's Groundhog
Blame the
Day.
Giants.
It's Groundhog Day. Another year, and they're in the same spot. So,
yep. All right, Justin, before we get into this mailbag, this episode is brought to you by some special people. We got Carl Tomato, and it's not tomato, it's TOMAHTO, so it's literally tomato.
Oh,
so you can't call it tomato, or you're just flat out wrong. Even though tomato is correct compared to tomato. No one calls it that. And then Sam DeFourier. Sam DeFourier should join Patreon. Justin, who are these people?
Why do people say tomato when tomato is just incorrect?
I don't know. That's probably the joke of it. It's like, who cares? Who cares?
Probably is the joke of it. Oh, who cares? Stan Lee died. You could join patreon.com/talkofgiants for $2 a month plus month tiers to get to hang out with us live. While we record the show, Bobby Skinner will send you some stickers in the mail, plus there's some shirt raffles a couple times a month. Patreon.com/talkgiants. Thanks so much to our patrons. We love you so much. You are the best. You're with us. You're a ride or dies. Win or lose, you're always there. Appreciate you.
All right, take it away, Steve.
Mail time.
Mail time. The mail's here. Come on. Bye, guys. Here's the mail. It never fails. It makes me want to wag my tail. When it comes, I want to wail.
Thanks, Steve from Blues Clues. Justin, let's get into the mail.
All right, we got two questions grouped together for the first one. First one's coming from Mike at Mike Muffmaster. Are you not reading my questions on the show because of my Twitter handle? Also, do you think the Giants should bench Daniel Jones to prevent an injury from triggering another year on his contract? And then Big Blue Bambino at Big Blue Bambino asks, great user, that's a great user. Do you guys think we actually know who Drew Lock is? He hasn't had a full week of first-team reps in preparation for a game yet. We all thought we had Darnold, Baker, and Geno pinned too. A new system and a supposed quarterback whisperer like Daboll may still do something for Drew Lock too.
So, after watching the film and, going back and revisiting some old film notes on Drew Lock and PPP and stuff, Justin, if you want to bench Daniel Jones, the reason really is the injury guarantee. Now, Daniel Jones' film the last 2 weeks shows a lack of aggression, being stuck on the first read, and accurate passes. So he is playing bad enough to be benched, and it wouldn't be blatantly for the injury guarantee, right? Like, you could talk yourself into the aggression. I'm going to talk about, there's going to be some negatives I want to talk about with Drew Lock, but I'm also going to throw a little positive spin of how it could be managed. But the bad part is like just Drew Lock with what he's shown historically, it's been bad, right? Like, he will push the ball down the field with more anticipation, like the dig to Slayton that he missed, Hyatt deep pass that was a little out of, a bit out of reach. Those were good anticipation throws. He'll be aggressive and take hold shots, like the one to Nabers that was almost intercepted because he was late. The issue is that he just hasn't been successful at all with aggression and what we've seen. Last year was 5th in deep throw rate, 42nd in completions of them, right? He threw 3 interceptions and 3 completions on 11 deep targets last year. His 1 year of starting, he was worse in 2020, where he led the league in interceptions and regular ones and deep ones. So his overall accuracy is poor, although he does have these like beautiful dimes that draw you in. But there's just like stuff like he doesn't throw hot when there's a blitz and then fumbles the ball. Like, I graded all his plays, Justin, and there wasn't a lot, so I can literally go through them. First play, fumbles the snap, very negative. Screen that was incomplete, neutral, wasn't his fault. Misses Slayton, negative. Misses Nabers, negative. Scramble, positive. 2-yard pass to Wandale, passed up on what would have been like a first down hitch, negative. 5-yard pass to Wandale on third down, went to the wrong side, negative. Strip sack, very negative. Deep pass to Hyatt, positive. Pass breakup to Nabers, very negative. So 3 very negatives out of 10 and 2 positives, which were a scramble and an incomplete pass. It was just positive instead of because it had good anticipation. The ball was slightly out of Hyatt's reach where it just got to his fingertips. Now, the positive spin would be he didn't get a whole week of prep and all that, but we've also seen quarterbacks come off the bench and look a lot better than what he did at that time. And Baker, Darnold, and Geno all showed flashes of good that we haven't never seen with Drew Lock. So you can't use those 3 guys to justify any quarterback ever. And they're all doing well with really positive situations outside of Geno. And the Giants without Andrew Thomas is not that. With Thomas, I think it can be a pretty positive situation. But here's the thing, Justin. Because of Daniel Jones' injury guarantee, that's the main thing, the injury guarantee. Because you are risking, losing $23 million or essentially $12 million of cap space if he tears his ACL or has something where he's not ready to in April. You basically have to be ready by, March 20th to pass a physical. Is that, and he hasn't played well enough. He hasn't played well enough to say he deserves to be the starter. The issue is that I think Locke is good or worse. But with Locke, they can move to Locke, recommit to the run game, simplify the offense, and go big game hunting like they did with Tommy DeVito. Absolutely, they can do that. Locke anticipates down the field better and is more creative on the run, so you can see some of that stuff. But Locke's past 2 stops, his training camp this year, his preseason, and a small bit of regular season have all been extremely negative despite a good game against the collapsing Eagles last year in primetime. And I think that's it. It's like he did play pretty well against the Eagles in primetime. We talk about it all the time. We love to overreact to primetime, but everything but that game has been pretty negative when it comes to Drew Lock.
Yeah, when it comes to Daniel Jones, Bobby, do you think the Giants should bench Daniel Jones to present the injury clause, blah, blah, blah? I am not going to be as stubborn on this as I was last year. And if anything, right now, I don't fully care what direction the Giants go in at quarterback, because it's clear that whatever direction that they go in, it's not going to be the answer for next year, and that's going to be the focus this offseason, 100%. So, I was pretty stubborn last year. We were both pretty stubborn last year. You know what? Say whatever you want about Daniel Jones, but Daniel Jones is a better option than Tyrod Taylor. Then Tyrod Taylor comes in, looks better, and especially when Andrew Thomas comes back, definitely does look better than Daniel Jones. We were stubborn about Tommy DeVito, but Tommy DeVito wound up leading a 3-game winning streak. Did he look great? No, except the Green Bay Packer game.
Oh, he looked bad. He was
but still, like
43rd
Tommy,
of 49 QBs in EPA per play.
It was bad. It was really bad. But did I think Tommy DeVito had that Green Bay game in his bag? No, I did not. Did it even the Washington game? The Washington game he played kind of well.
That was. I don't want to revisit the whole Tommy DeVito thing,
and I don't either. But my overall point is that I'm not going to be as stubborn. Like last year, I was like, "F no, man. F no. This guy ain't better than this guy." And Tyrod
Taylor didn't want to come back because he didn't get started over a lesser player than Tommy DeVito.
Right. And I'm not gonna sit here and say the season is so much drastically different if Tyrod Taylor is here, but the way that he did operate that offense last year, and that was not a great situation last year. But I'm not kidding you, and there's enough of a sample size. Tyrod, if we're talking about a quarterback that did throw the ball deep, he didn't show it. He didn't show this great willingness throughout his entire career. That's why last year was just so surprising for Tyrod Taylor. But big time throw rate was like the highest in the NFL last year. Tyrod Taylor throws a really nice deep ball. The longest completed air distance throw in the NFL last year was Tyrod Taylor. So this season may be a little different if Tyrod's here, but he's not. So number one, he's not here. And then number two, I'm not, because of that example last year, I'm not going to be so stubborn and say, you know what? Well, that's why they need to keep Daniel Jones in, because I just know for a fact that Drew Lock is worse. I do think Drew Lock is worse, but also at the end of the day, Bobby, we have an offense that's 30th in points per drive, and they're now 29th. They're tied for 29th in 20-plus yard passing plays. So it's the same results that we got last year. It's the same results that we had in 2000, not even 2021 was better. 2020 and, going back to all those bad years of offense. It's still the same result, even if certain games looked better. We're now 7 games into the year, almost getting into halfway through this season, and the results are still the same. They are not scoring points, they are not scoring touchdowns, and they are not explosive. So even if Drew Lock is worse, like if Brian Daboll and this coaching staff and if this fan base wants to pound the table enough to get Daniel Jones out of there, I can't blame them. I can't blame them. But I don't have such a strong emotion to it because I don't view Drew Lock as an upgrade.
Yeah, the injury guarantee is the key because, like you said, they can be like they're 31st in scoring right now, or tied for 30th with I can't remember which team.
Yeah, but they're 30th in points per drive.
But the argument is you have that injury guarantee, so we can play someone and still be bad on offense and not have to worry about the next hit being a $23 million cap hit next year. And we're talking about a guy who basically has been seeking out contact this year in Daniel Jones. So that's why I'm fine with it. Like I truly am fine if they decide to go to Lock because of the injury guarantee. And Daniel Jones has played bad enough to where he deserves to be just benched in general. And if outside of the Daniel Jones versus Drew Lock thing, what I'm never gonna say is like, I'm never it can't be worse than this guy because we retired that phrase. It can always be worse than what it is. I would expect it to be worse, but what you can do, like I said, is you can recommit to trying to get the run game going, simplify the offense, and make your offense a little more big game hunting with simplified reads. Absolutely. It's just that Drew Lock comes with a lot of negative football, in his history, and the issue is it's 10 games left, so it's like then you got to go 10 games, and then maybe you go to DeVito or some shit. But I agree with you. The injury guarantee has me totally fine if they make a switch. Like I'm not blinking. Right. If there was no injury guarantee, I'd actually be saying for Daniel Jones should play, despite the fact that everyone wants him out.
No, I don't care. Like again, I don't have.
Okay, well, you have to fucking care with 10 games in a football season left. You may not care, but coaches don't want to get fucking fired, so they have to care. You can't have fuck it. You have to have reasoning why to play somebody. Okay, then let's play Trey Hawkins over Deontay Banks because Deontay Banks has been bad. Deontay Banks has been really bad, so Trey Hawkins should play over him.
No, I think you're taking out of context my I don't care. It's just the next answer for quarterback is not on the roster right now. But I think after seeing Daniel Jones for 6 years now and seeing, this is year 3 of him in this system and knowing what you're going to get, I don't blame people for really wanting just a change. And it's not because, it can't get worse. It's just because it's a change. Drew Lock will be a change, whether it's for better,
refreshing.
Whether it's for good, better or for worse, it is a change.
Yes, it would be refreshing, and then it wouldn't be refreshing once he's in there, and then you'd have people being like, then you have people calling for Daniel Jones again, which would be insane. But once you do it, you got to do it. So I don't think it's insane that like Brian Daboll sees these guys every day. He thinks Daniel Jones is better than Drew Lock. If he did not, and he thought it was even close, he would go to Drew Lock because Lock is more aggressive and you don't have that cap hit. But the reason why he's staying with Daniel Jones is because he doesn't think it's close.
Yeah,
and he wants it to be close so he can do that, and it hasn't been close.
But it could be
if they go to Drew Lock, run a simplified, like all or nothing. We're gonna take a good amount of sacks, and that's the way it's gonna be. Like, so you can run a Tommy DeVito-ish offense. I agree, but like you can't compare it to Tyrod Taylor because Daniel Jones up until last year, if you look at stats and film, had been a better QB than Tyrod Taylor, but it wasn't far off, and Tyrod Taylor has had success in his past. And we also forget some of the negatives that came with Tyrod. Like, it was awesome that Tyrod Taylor hit deep shots last year. Do we remember missing Saquon 5 yards in front of his face, wide open on a 4th down? Like we forget some of the negative stuff that came with it, even though Tyrod has over the last 2 years has played better than Daniel Jones. So it sucks. Like you're asking for, you're arguing. It's like the South Park election. Like it sucks that this is your 2 choices. And I wish the Giants maybe would have forecasted this and took in backup QB a little more serious, which I hate to say because I'm not a big backup QB guy. Pay the backup QB guy, but this sucks. I agree, it does suck. If Drew Lock went in, it would be refreshing. It would be absolutely refreshing. But everything points to him being like chaotically bad.
Yeah, but that's what last year makes me more open to moving to Drew Lock sooner rather than later because of what happened last year. And no matter how bad DeVito was, they still did have that 3-game winning streak, and there was bad in there, but still, it was a change and it was different. And that when that's the best talking point and that's the best argument, it's still not a good argument, but still, I mean, we've at this point it's 6 years of Daniel Jones versus 10 games of Drew Lock, or eventually if they even do move to Tommy DeVito. It would just be different, and it would be something different to watch and evaluate, and maybe something good happens. Maybe.
Yeah. Play Greg's dad. Next question.
Play Greg's dad. You're all right on me? You kind of lost.
Yeah.
A little
Here's
bit.
the thing: is I cannot stand I don't like. I get it.
No, you understand where
I'm
not saying I don't care about Giants football. I'm just saying that this is such a bad. This situation, like you said, this situation just sucks so bad that I don't feel like to just have this. Daniel Jones, Drew Lock, Tommy DeVito, they're all bad. They're all not good quarterbacks. So
yeah, but
it's almost like
we have to speak from the point of view of what they should do if we were in the coaching room.
Yeah.
Like I agree. Like as a fan, I'd rather just see Drew Lock out there. I really would. The injury guarantee, like I'd rather see Drew Lock out there. But as like you have to think of from a coach's point of view who is trying to think of all the other 52 guys in the locker room. But if they go there, you can't blame them because Daniel Jones hasn't given him any reason to say this is why you need to stay with him for the next 10 games of the season.
You want to think,
and eventually they're going to go to Drew Lock, by the way, unless he totally turns it around. Like eventually we're going to get to Drew Lock.
Yeah.
But again, if they go to Drew Lock, I'm totally fine with it. The injury guarantee, and they can run this simplified big game hunting. Admit that we're going to take some sacks and have some really brain dead plays, and hopefully we can run the ball decently enough, which we'll talk about a little later when it comes to Brian Daboll specifically. All right, next question.
Yeah, you want to think about the guys in the locker room? Maybe you should have played the better player in Tyrod Taylor and not stick with the fun story in Tommy DeVito. Yeah,
I agree.
That's that. If we really want to talk about like the coaching perspective of it, that was a
if
decision.
you wanted to keep Tyrod Taylor for $1 million more per year than what Drew Lock is getting, then you should have done that because. Yeah. It was bullshit in the moment, and everyone talked about, oh, cool story, blah, 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 and they won the last 2 games. In reality, they played which was a much lesser quarterback.
Yeah, I also think they have a shot at beating the Saints last year if they play Tyrod Taylor. Ooh, Robert Pupkin at Bon_Bon25. Good to see him. Rupert Pupkin, excuse me. I don't have my glasses on. At Bon_Bon25. Good to see him, my friend. He gave me cigarellos once. Romeo and Juliet cigarellos. I will never forget that. I love those things. Deontay Banks level effort here. Just read an ad, Bobby Skinner.
Banks is getting roasted on this episode. That's for damn sure. Get ready for the season ahead with quality shades built to last. Our friends at Shady Rays have you covered with premium polarized shades that won't break the bank. Shady Rays is an independent sunglasses company offering a world-class product rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. That's almost as many people that listen to Talking Giants. Their shades have durable frames and crystal clear optics, making them the perfect choice for all outdoor adventures. Speaking of outdoor adventures, yes. The advertisements have been creeping into my past week, but we were out on the boat. What do you need on the boat? Sunglasses. Guess what I had? I had my Rays, and I was out on the water, going swimming, and like you worry about losing your sunglasses, but that's what's great about Shady Rays. If your shades ever go missing or you take an unexpected hit, don't sweat it. They have the most insane protection in all of eyewear. Every pair is backed by a lost or broken replacement. So if you get smacked with a boat in the water, and the first thing you think of is like, oh my gosh, my sunglasses, Shady Rays has you covered. So if you don't love your shades, you can exchange for a new pair or return worry-free within 30 days. Exclusively for our listeners, Shady Rays is giving out their best deal of the season. Go to shadyrays.com and use code GIANTS for 50% off 2+ pairs of polarized sunglasses. And That offer applies to the custom Jimmy and Jake collab shades, so go get yours now. And if you don't know who Jimmy and Jake are, they are our bosses. You'll be glad you did. I want to hear some fan outreach. Do you know who Jimmy or Jake is? I want to know. Maybe we should run a poll in the chat.
Leave a comment.
All right, next question.
Leave a comment.
Engagement. Bam.
Talking Yanks.
We're engagement farming.
Talking
Yanks.
Yanks.
Go check them out, by the way. Talking Yanks. Yankees baseball. This mustache ain't here for no reason.
They're in the World
Yankees
Series.
baseball. Let's go Yankees baseball.
Joe at Dumb Liners. That's a good user.
Do you think we're going to beat the Dodgers?
I hope we beat the Dodgers for the
I'm
show.
worried.
Beat the Dodgers. Let's show them who the real horse is.
Who's favored?
Who is favored? That's a good question. Our friends at the DraftKings Sportsbook would have that answer. Joe at Dumb Liners. I am seeing some blame being placed on Daboll's play calling the last 2 weeks. Is Daboll more to blame than DJ? Or are guys still being schemed open and DJ is just not executing? Bobby, Malik Nabers said that he was open. And Brian Daboll said, yes, he was open. What are you seeing on the film?
We're going to do the Neighbors open thing a little later.
Oh, sure.
I can't tell World Series. I don't know who's favored in this series as a whole.
Baseball's hard.
So he doesn't deserve more blame than Daniel Jones. I want to get that out of the way. But I am a little frustrated. Not a little. I'm frustrated with Daboll's play calling. You know, like I want to start running the ball. How about that? Like running the ball 3 times in the first half against a Vic Fangio defense, and you're out your star left tackle. That is egregious. 3 times on 7 drives. 3 times on 33 plays in the first half, you handed the ball off to your running back.
With the quarterback you currently hate.
Yeah, with the quarterback you don't trust. All right, that's nuts. That's insanity. That is wild. Like and not just in a game specific, just hand the ball off. Like you need to have a consistent commitment to running the ball. Know your strengths and know your weaknesses as a run unit. There's no adjusting to the way a team stopped the run against you. Like there's little things that like, hey, you want to run a play where you're pulling guys, but they're spilling in on you, and if in on you, throw a little fake at them, right? Have Jermaine Illuminor take a right step before he gets to his down block, right? Make defensive players think. Against this run defense, they don't have to think at all. It's just about like beating blocks and like there's no you don't make it tough on them at all. It's just like cookie cutter, like basic install run plays with no nuances to them. This season, there has not been a single run play where it's like, ooh, this is a nice design the way they did this. It's just basic run designs, and can they block them up or can they not? You know, and they have like an O-line coach who values the fullback position, and you don't carry him on your roster despite his contributions to special teams. Like it's been a frustration with Daboll outside of the first year with Saquon about the run game. But Brian Daboll is limited with the way that Daniel Jones is playing, like flat out. Like they look for aggression at times on first and second down, and they don't get the aggressive throws, and teams are stopping the quick game consistently, and DJ's been inaccurate when they do push it down the field. It's hurting them. And then you have Josh Azudu who's killing them and Daniel Jones on third down. Like the third down issues last week aren't on Daniel Jones. It's on mostly the offensive line. It's the first and second down stuff where you look at Daniel Jones first and then Brian Daboll. But it's hard to call aggressive plays consistently when your QB doesn't take the aggressive throw. So you run quick game, and teams pick up on that, but you don't take advantage of teams being able to picking up on that. But Brian Daboll has taken things out of the playbook that Daniel Jones has had success with in the past. You know, like just taking things out. Things that they used to run like 3 times in a quarter, they've run 3 times over the last 4 games. You know, so like that's weird to me. Like, and there's a few concepts, and I'm talking like bread and butter, like money down type of concepts, or like, hey,
on third down.
This is where we're trying to get our chunk plays of. You know, he does not add new wrinkles and tendency changers to the plays, which is something that I love. If there was one thing I consistently love over the last 2 years as an offensive design from the Giants, it's that they have their bread and butter plays, but they have tendency changers out of those bread and butter plays. They don't have that this year. They spam plays over and over and over again. So, but at the end of the day, would a good QB make us feel great about Brian Daboll as an offensive play caller? I do think so, because he fits an aggressive quarterback, but he's also not the mastermind that we've come to know guys like Sean McVay or Kyle
Yeah.
Shanahan or Kevin O'Connell for. So like I don't think he's this irreplaceable offensive mind, and I think he has his issues, but at the end of the day, it's the root issue is quarterback.
Yeah, I agree with you when I said this. I think I literally said the same thing on Sunday Monday show with, we're not Andy Reid, we're not McVay, we're not Shanahan, but I still like Brian Daboll as an offense coach, but it's kind of just mind-boggling, especially now that your left tackle's out and your offensive line is so compromised. And clearly I guess they wanted to give Josh Azudu the shot at left tackle, and now, they've made some moves this week, or they're trying to make some moves this week of bringing some different guys in and bringing some veterans in. But the lack of commitment to running the ball, and forget a commitment, right? That's a strong word. The Kansas City Chiefs and the 49ers, they show a commitment to running the ball. The Ravens show a commitment to running the ball. Just abandoning it is crazy. Again, with a quarterback that you don't believe in. That's the craziest part of this. This isn't just Drew Lock. This isn't just a young quarterback that you're trying to form up and get attempts and get reps under his belt. This is a quarterback that everyone and their mother now knows that you don't like and that you want to replace. Yet, you're dying by the sword. Like you're choosing to put the game in the hands of a quarterback that you don't like and that you don't trust to call these deep aggressive concepts and hit. Yet you're the worst team on early downs. Why the Giants are a bottom 3 offense again in the National Football League this year is that they are the worst team on first and second down in football. They're the worst. And they're actually, before the last two, when I looked at these numbers, before maybe the Bengals game, they were a top 10 offense on third down. Malik Nabers, Wan'Dale Robinson getting the ball. Darius Slayton got the ball against the Seahawks. So they were really good on third down. They are the worst team in the National Football League on early downs. And you are never in a million years are you going to be a successful football team in the NFL when you are playing constantly behind the sticks. You will never. You will be a bad football team if those are your numbers and if that's your production on early downs. And I think, I do like to throw the ball on early downs, but also you gotta have some sort of presence of running the damn ball, and they just don't have any. They don't, and they do have plays that works in the run game that we've talked about week in and week out. There are plays that work. There are some concepts that work in the run game, but they don't go back to it. And that's very frustrating too. And that's on the coach who's calling the plays.
Yeah. Going into this, this is the ultimate, work around the issue you have at quarterback. And I don't think there's been that great desire to there's no identity as a run game. And that is when he came from Buffalo. All our Buffalo people had nice things to say. The one consistent negative was the run game. It was there's no commitment, there's no identity. They just never really found their flow as a run unit. Yeah.
And these are bad defenses that we're playing too. That's the thing that kills me the most. Last year, to start the year, you had these gauntlet of just great defenses with great talent. The Cowboys, the 49ers, right? And it's oh man, you just don't get a break. You don't catch a break. This year, the defenses that the Giants have faced outside of the Minnesota Vikings have been mostly really bad. And they've been really bad on the ground. And they can't do anything. They haven't been able to do anything. And you're still bottom 3 in scoring.
Yeah.
So,
bad.
We know it.
Next question.
Next question is coming from Wes Locke at Westy Westicles. Second year in a row where Joe Shane didn't take a swing / backup tackle serious. That now they're scrambling for off-the-street bodies. Why didn't they take this more seriously instead of carrying dead weight with Josh Azudu and Evan Neal?
Justin, who would have thought that O-line depth was a major issue? Who would have thought having Josh Azudu at left tackle may cost these dudes their jobs? They're working out DJ Humphries coming off of an ACL. They signed Chris Hubbard from the 49ers practice squad. Who would have thought that using a guard with confidence issues as your backup tackle was a bad idea? Who would have thought that jumbling your whole O-line in hopes of Evan Neal being good was a bad idea? Thank God Evan Neal wasn't ready for camp. Or they would have been scrambling after the second preseason game or sticking to their gun saying, nope, this is what we're going to do. And you wouldn't have signed Greg Van Roten. Jermaine Illuminor would be at left guard, John Runyon at right guard, and it would have taken disasters in game for it to happen. But here's the reality. I just don't think Joe Shane takes depth seriously enough. Like, it stems from he drafts for need to plug holes, which leads to new holes the following year that he needs to plug. So there's no depth at any position. And this is not just an offensive tackle question, even though swing tackle is such an important position. Like, my biggest Joe Shane red flag was the 2022 draft having 11 picks, and they clearly just drafted for a need. And then in 2023, they went into the draft without a center on the roster, and then they cut Tyree Phillips for Matt Parrott to be a swing offensive tackle, and then put Josh Azudu in, who has been practicing exclusively at guard. It's the reason that they had to, panic sign Adoree Jackson at the end of the training camp. And we saw on Hard Knocks that he clearly drafts for need. I think they just go in through year one, it's fine. Because you had not much money to spend. And you need to, swallow that pill to get through the year. But after that, there just has not been an effort to bring in depth. Like, the Giants wouldn't have signed Jermaine Illuminor or John Runyon or Greg Van Roten if Neal or Azudu worked out. Like, I don't think they would be like, all right, well, we got to bring in depth for these guys. Like, I don't think he takes depth seriously enough. It's been my biggest worry with this team. And then at the end, they have to scramble. Like, you have to scramble and sign Adoree Jackson after, and Flott's actually played better than Adoree Jackson, which it is like, how do we treat Flott training camps? Because Flott is literally two different players in games in training camp, 3 years in a row. But I don't think Joe Shane takes depth that serious. And the swing tackle thing has been 3 years running, where it's like, why is this not addressed at all?
Well, what complicates the situation is that Josh Azudu was the 74th or 75th pick of the draft, and Evan Neal was the 7th overall pick of the draft. That's what complicates this whole situation. It's not like they are ignoring it, because they know that Evan Neal and Josh Azudu are problems. I mean, Joe Shane made a list on Hard Knocks of players on the offensive line that they have for the next 2 to 3 years. He listed JMS, Andrew Thomas, and John Runyon as 3 of those players. He did not list Evan Neal as part of that long-term equation on the offensive line. So it's like they know that there are issues, but there's 53 guys on a roster, Bobby, and you're not going to cut them. You can't cut. Where are they going to go? Where's Azudu and Neal go? I mean, forget Azudu for a second, because we know that they're playing him out of position, and why that's happening is a whole different conversation. But you're really going to have Evan Neal as the second tackle on this team, the seventh overall pick, former 7th overall pick of the draft. It's just a bad situation because of how badly they just whiffed on those 2 draft picks.
Yeah, but here's the thing: it's like whiffs on draft picks happen. They shouldn't, but they happen, and I just don't think they've taken depth seriously.
No, they have not.
That's been the reality of it, and I think that matters at the defensive line spot. Basically everywhere. Like, they don't have depth, and after 3 years, you should have depth at more spots than wide receiver and edge, and that's kind of like de facto depth, honestly.
Yeah, I wouldn't even call the edge depth very, very good, especially in a league.
No,
where
it's basically Aziz, which we'll talk about Aziz in a second.
And also forget interior defensive line depth. Whole different conversation.
Well, even starters aren't even. Nacho's not a good starter either.
No.
Nacho should be depth.
No, anytime.
But here's the thing: is they plug holes for 1 year, and then the next year, they get new holes and they just plug those holes instead of drafting for best player available. They draft for need.
Yep.
It's been 3 years in a row they've drafted for need.
Yep. I agree. And then you don't get, you're drafting for need instead of just taking great players. I mean, obviously you want to marry the two, but I mean, especially when you get to day 2 and day 3, just fucking take good football players.
Yep.
Don't overcomplicate it.
I've talked about it. Go listen back to some draft day speeches. Like, it in the moment, it's always tough, right? Like, we don't need a defensive tackle. We just signed Ashawn Robinson yesterday. We got Nacho as depth. We got Leonard Williams, Dexter Lawrence. Okay, well, the next year you have Nacho as the starter and DJ Davidson as your next guy up.
Yeah,
that ain't great.
All right, Eli DePlax. At Eli DePlax, how concerned are you that Jerome Henderson, in the middle of a play last week, had to tell Deontay Banks to read an ad. Oh boy, yeah, Deontay Banks. Get to it, man. Get to talking about the Candlewick Diner. Actually, Deontay Banks, where he went after the game, I heard. He didn't run during the play on that third down Jalen Hurts scramble, but he ran to the Candlewick Diner because he wanted to get out of that building. And today's episode is sponsored by the Candlewick Diner. Today's Mailbag is sponsored by the Candlewick Diner. Hey, Candlewick Diner observation, they usually do preview pods and then they usually do recap pods. I think this is one of the first Mailbags that they've sponsored. How do you like that? It's the go-to place for pre- and post-game meals during Giants game days. 55 years in East Rutherford, serving Giants fans for over 5 decades, and even serving some Giants fans for the last couple decades too. I think I got a text message from somebody, and I think Dave Gettleman, either Dave Gettleman's family members or Dave Gettleman himself was recently at the diner, and I need to read that update on how that went. Apparently he's still close with the Maras, and they still talk. Excited to announce that they will be catering Talking Giants tailgates again this year. That is a true statement. Located just a mile up the road from MetLife Stadium, full-service bar, in-house bakery, free delivery. It is awesome. Check out the Candlewick Diner in East Rutherford, New Jersey for all your diner favorites. You'll be glad you did. Best diner in New Jersey. I'm serious. Don't you dare even comment, oh, just this diner's better. Because you're wrong. Sorry. Eat shit.
It's my go-to diner whenever I'm up there.
It's very good.
I have an update.
You have an update.
Right now, who is the only Knicks starter who hasn't scored?
I'm guessing it's Mikal Bridges.
0 for 3, 0 for 2 on 3-point shots.
Yep, and the Celtics already have a 13-point lead. I was very open to the fact that they were not going to win tonight.
Damn it.
Hopefully they come back.
Mikal, figure it out. All right, next question.
Go New York, go New York, go. What is this emoji?
Oh, but I wanted to commend you, dude. Like, it's very tough to go and talk to just random strangers and ask them questions. I want to commend you on your video of asking all those random strangers.
You're being sarcastic, right? Because those were not random strangers. Those were John Boy Media employees.
Oh, I thought you were gonna keep the.
You didn't see Jeremy?
Like I know.
Oh.
I thought that was. Is that like a joke on people that people will understand, or is it just like?
No, we do it because we just have to do it.
Oh, okay. I was like, this is very. I was like, this is. I kept on waiting. I was like, is one of these not going to be John Boy Media employees? That's good.
But the general public doesn't know them because they're all behind the scenes people. So they're all strangers to everybody. At Tarab knows with an emoji as his username. This offseason, we will have to pick up Kayvon Thibodeau's 5th year. Has he done enough to deserve it? Also, is it worth extending Azeez Ojulari this offseason, trying to trade him now, or not enough to tell? So what are we going to do with Kayvon? What are we going to do with Azeez?
This is a good question, a little off the beaten path.
I love it. Yeah.
Kayvon's 5th-year option would likely be $16 million. You know, right now there's 18 guys in the NFL that make more money than that per year in the edge room. Yeah, I would. I think he's a good enough player to be a starting edge in the NFL. You know, he hasn't lived up to the 5th overall pick, but like he is better this year in his role than he was last year. You know, I know he got all the sacks last year, and it's like, how? What are you talking about? But like, he has a better win rate than Brian Burns. He's been more consistent. You know, his win rate is more than double last year. You know, this year he's 24th of 60 edges. Last year he was 53rd of 55. Burns is 29. Where is this like Burns is like top 5 in win rate stat that I've seen like pop up? Like, is it just made up? You know, he had 2 sacks in 5 games, just as many as Brian Burns. Now he wouldn't stop me from upgrading that room though, by the way. Like, let's just pretend the Giants aren't in a position to draft a quarterback in the 1st round, and it's like the best player available is edge. I'm drafting edge. He's not that type of player where he stops me from drafting someone in the 1st round. But absolutely, you pick up his 5th-year option. He's a good enough player for that. Even if you don't plan to extend him long term, for that money and the Giants' current roster makeups and having to pay this guy and stuff, they're going to be in a fine spot. He's not someone I would want to just let walk.
ESPN pass rush win rate has Brian Burns at a win rate of 25%, which is 7th in the NFL, with Aiden Hutchinson at 35% leading. So it's Hutchinson, Garrett.
It's ESPN's, okay.
Yeah, it's Hutchinson, Garrett, Hendrickson, Jared Verse, Darrell Taylor, Donnell Hunter, and then Brian Burns at 25%, with Max Crosby and Will Anderson Jr. 8 and 9. So how do you like that? Brian Burns is having a good year. But yeah, I agree with you. I'm picking up KT's 5th-year option. You know, the guy did have double-digit sacks, and you can't take that away from him, despite how inconsistent he was last year, he still had 10 plus sacks, which is awesome. Still got to double-digit tackles for loss, which is great. And now he's having a better year in a system that I think is more edge rusher friendly and more edge rusher numbers friendly. Is having a better year. Already has 4 quarterback hits according to PFF. The way that PFF measures QB hits is better than Pro Football Reference. So he already is matching the same amount of hits that he had on the quarterback last year as this year. So, and I do think the sacks were going to come for Kayvon because he was winning more, because he was hitting the quarterback more. Yeah. So I do think the sacks were going to come eventually for him, and he would have had one of those monster games of a two sack game, and that would have put him right back in the mix of being in a solid spot in the NFL and on the Giants. So I'm very okay with picking up his 5th-year option. Heading into this offseason. And with Azeez,
the question with Kayvon is like, do you look to extend, and what does that number? Because I don't think they would extend him after this year, because I don't think he's going to have the production to get the contract that he wants, and the Giants aren't going to offer him
what he wants.
So I don't think he gets extended after this year, but you should pick up his option.
Yeah, especially with the injury, and you're missing a couple games there. You're missing about a month. So with Azeez, if the Giants get an offer, like a trade offer, that's like, whoa, you can't pass it up, then do it. But if Azeez is willing to take a contract that you feel good about, that you're willing to swallow, and also, you just look down the pipeline, there's who do the Giants have to extend? I think they're projected to have some $50 million in cap space. Who do they have to extend?
Yeah, they'll have a lot once they cut. That's when people talk about, this player, well, he's not. It's like, okay, but again, who are these people? Who are these tough? Where are these tough? Like, you made the tough decisions when you let Xavier McKinney and Saquon Barkley walk, and then paid Daniel. Like, those are the tough decisions that you made. Going forward, you don't really have these tough decisions where you got to let guys walk.
No, the roster's roster, kind of.
Yeah, like there's not any there's no monster contracts that are in the immediate, but that's not a monster contract.
No, it's not. No.
Like it's not going to be a cheap contract, but it's not a monster contract. So it's like, what would Azeez cost to re-sign?
Yeah.
To? Like, he has 4 sacks this year. He's not a great run defender. He has an injury history. He doesn't have great pass rush metrics this year. He's been a little more of a stunt merchant than he is just winning around the edge like he did in 2022.
But you need depth.
Yeah, but depth matters, and he's a useful player who has good athleticism and bend. He does work those stunts really well. So, like, again, we love to throw, like, what are you getting in a trade for Azeez? 6? Now, here's the thing with Azeez, though, is that if you don't want to bet on him staying healthy, that's fair, and you can trade him. But again, depth matters. It matters more than a 6th-round draft pick. And I love 6th-round draft picks, but I'd rather have a cheap depth piece, which is what Azeez would be. He would be cheap. But I'm not giving him, like, any, like, decent contract. Like, it's going to be close to the minimum with what he's been over the last... What he's been for his career. Like, that's what it should come in at. Unless he has some monster, finish the season. And if he does... If he is someone that, like, does... get like an $8 million per year. I'm not paying that for a guy who hasn't been healthy, but I don't forecast that happening at all.
No, I don't either. And I am with you too, of especially in Shane Bowen's system. I'm still, even if Azeez comes back, it may not be within the first 2 rounds, but I'm very willing and open to drafting another edge too, as a guy that can develop and a guy that can be depth for you. And then you want to talk about a group that's set for a couple years. You'll have Kayvon Thibodeau on his 5th year, where hopefully you extend him. Brian Burns is on his contract. Azeez is a nice depth piece, and then he just drafted an edge to basically replace Azeez Ojulari once his contract is up. I mean, that's a solid group. You want to talk about depth and putting yourself in a good spot. That's putting yourself in a good spot at a very important position. So I'm still open to that as well with the future of the edge position.
Absolutely. All right, next question.
Next question is coming from DeekFreak72 at JJDeekFreak72. Since you guys keep mentioning it when talking about Slayton, can you each give your top 15 Giants in order? Talent, not positional value.
This is a fun exercise, and I actually put it on Twitter for people to do themselves.
Yeah.
So I put it in tiers. I have 3 players in the great tier: Dexter Lawrence, Andrew Thomas, and Malik Nabers, in that order. Nabers can overcome Andrew Thomas eventually. That's my order.
What's your third?
Malik Nabers. I think he's the third best player on the team.
Okay, I'll put 4 players in a great tier.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll put 4 players.
Like top of your position, great.
I'll put 4 players in there because I gave a little slight to, even though I do have rookies on this list, I kind of did give a little slight to veterans. I have Dex, AT, I put Burns third, and then I have Nabers fourth.
Okay, so I think Malik Nabers is a better player than Brian Burns. So, but then my next tier is top 15 at your position. And Burns is right around that range, but I put Brian Burns number 4, Bobby Okereke 5. So is Bobby Okereke your 5th? Because you did your first 4.
Yep, I did Bobby Okereke 5.
Who's your 6? Because this is where you're splicing. Where it's like I could be convinced. But like, who is your 6? And it was like, is it close? Like, who's in the conversation for 6 for you?
Number 1, this is a really tough exercise because it's tough to be like, well, is this guard a better football player than a safety? I
feel like we know these guys enough though, where we can make that distinction.
I have Jermaine at 6.
Okay.
I do.
This is really tough. So I have a really good tier. Nobody's in that one. Nobody's in the really good tier. Then I have good. I have 3 guys in that tier. And I have Kayvon Thibodeau, Darius Slayton, and Jermaine Illuminor. And I can't decide on the order.
Okay, so the next 3, 6, 7, 8, I have Jermaine, KT, and Slayton. So we have the same 3 players, 6 through 8. But it will the same, maybe not the same order, but the same group of players. Yes.
Yeah, okay. And then I have above average. Be honest, so you don't want to get overhyped on rookies. Everyone overhypes their rookie class in the moment, and then it's like, well, literally every single year. Go 2020. People are overhyping, everybody. Every last year, right? Deontay Banks, now people hate him. So, but I have above average. And I'll be honest, this guy has played above average, despite the fact he hasn't been on the field a ton. Number 9, I got Drew Phillips. He's played really well. Like, he shut down Devon. Like, I focus in on him in coverage because a lot of times it's the run defense and tackles for a loss.
Right.
Like, he did really good with Devontae Smith and man coverage. Now, they gave him help, right? He got some help defense from Nubin quite a bit, but he did really good. So I have him number 9, and then I have Wan'Dale Robinson rounding out my top 10.
I have Micah McFadden at number 9.
Ooh. He comes off he's not someone they put on the field on third down.
I mean, you just talked about somebody who hasn't played all that often either. And Drew Phillips.
Yeah, that's because he's been injured.
I have Micah McFadden at 9. I still think the plays that he makes, the negative plays that he makes, I did not expect him to look this good at interior linebacker going from Wink Martindale to Shane Bowen. Then I have Wan'Dale Robinson 10.
Okay. So we both have the same number 10. And then, so here's my 11 through 15. And the above average is Drew Phillips, Wan'Dale Robinson, and then Tyler Nubin is my number 11. I know he hasn't made the crazy play. Like, he does well in man coverage. This defense has not put him in a situation to get a lot of picks or hands on the football. He doesn't get targeted. They put him in man coverage a lot, too. They don't put Pinnock on man coverage the way they do Tyler Nubin.
So you have Nubin at 11?
Yeah.
I also have Nubin at 11, and then I slide Drew Phillips in at 12.
Okay. So I go from my above average tier to my average tier. Devin Singletary I have 12, John Runyon 13, Deontay Banks 14, and then I put Micah McFadden at 15, and Jason Pinnock would have been my 16.
Okay. I said 12 was Phillips, right? So I have 13, I have Pinnock. 14, I have Runyon, and then 15, I have Tyrone Tracy.
So you're willing to declare Tyrone Tracy better than Devin Singletary already?
Mm-hmm.
Devin Singletary's been a lead back his entire career.
I know. And remember how I said at the start?
One good game.
Remember how I said at the start that I gave more of a favor to veterans? I guess I lied.
He could listen. Tracy could be it, but he has one good game against the Seattle defense where. Like, I think Singletary has that same, like, not the same game, but a similar game to Tyrone Tracy. All right, so go quickly through your 1 through 15. Mine is Dexter Lawrence, Andrew Thomas, Malik Nabers, Brian Burns, Bobby Okereke is my top 5. Kayvon Thibodeau, Darius Slayton, Jermaine Illuminor, Drew Phillips, and Wan'Dale Robinson, my top 10. And then Tyler Nubin, Devin Singletary, John Runyon, Deonte Banks, Micah McFadden as my top 15.
All right. My top 10 is Dexter Lawrence.
This roster sucks.
Yeah, it gets tough after Darius Slayton. It gets tough putting guys in an order that you feel good about, right?
Yeah.
Like, even I don't feel great. Like, I put Tyron Tracy's having a good year, and I think he's off to a good start. I think he showed some good contact balance stuff. And also, Tyron Tracy hasn't costed the Giants games by fumbling the ball. That's also a huge part of it, too, for me.
Also, we're not putting Graham Gano and Casey Kreider in this. I looked at some of the replies, and people had it. You can do it if you want. I'm not putting...
Graham Gano cost the Giants football games the last couple years, also by getting hurt.
So it's like...
I also hate special teams.
Yeah, I'm not including long snapper and kicker in there.
Yeah. I have my top 10 is Dexter Lawrence, Andrew Thomas, Brian Burns, Malik Nabers, Bobby Okereke, Jermaine Illuminor, Kayvon Thibodeau, Darius Slayton, Micah McFadden, and Wan'Dale Robinson, rounding out the top 10. Then I have Tyler Nubin, Andrew Phillips, Jason Pinnock, John Runyon, and Tyrone Tracy Jr. It's crazy that Deonte Banks, a first-round corner, a first-round player, does not make this list.
He makes number 14 for me.
Oh, you said Deonte Banks at 14?
Yeah.
Who do you think is a better football player right now? This may be a bad question because you said he's kind of a stunt merchant. Azeez Ojulari or Deonte Banks? Deonte
Banks. If you put Deonte Banks actually has improved, and if you put him in a cornerback 2 role, he'd be playing a lot better. Here's a take, because we're getting ready to go in on Deonte Banks. He played good man coverage on A.J. Brown. He was physical at the line. He did a good job. The issue was when they were in cover 3, he just allowed everything underneath him. Where, you know how it's like, I think, during last year, I thought he was better in zone than man, because he'd get cooked off the line in man. I actually think he's developed into a better man corner now. So, like, it was an awful film for Deonte Banks this game against A.J. Brown. Gave up stuff underneath in cover 3 zone, but in man coverage, he had some really good snaps on him. But he hasn't been very good this year.
Yeah.
All right, next question.
Cornerback position is 1,000 attaboys and 1 oh shit. What do you get remembered for? Nice.
He's had a good amount of oh shits though.
Nice saying my fault. Well, I mean, you get what I mean.
I get what you mean.
The 1-0 shit this game was a bad one, and it's what we're going to talk about. Angry Giants fan at Giants Angry. Good one. Some good usernames tonight. Does Deonte Banks lapses in effort ultimately result? Let me pause again. Does Deonte Banks' lapses in effort ultimately a result of Daboll's coaching style? And does it cause concern with past trends of locker room dysfunction, like with Xavier McKinney and Wink Martindale?
I don't know the full answer on that. You know, the only discipline we've ever seen under this regime was not playing Kadarius Toney, and then trading him. And like that's a all-time head case. It's hard to become that when you're already players coach. But here's what I'll say when it comes to the Deonte Banks thing. Because the CeeDee Lamb hustle thing, I don't know what the punishment was behind the scenes or if it was just a tongue lashing or whatever. I don't think that's bench worthy, that play against CeeDee Lamb. I don't think he should miss a single snap because of that. All right, he wasn't going to stop CeeDee Lamb anyways. But it is, you need to hustle. And, you know, we have examples of like the McKinney stuff with Wink last year and you know, him not taking player sides. And we'll talk about Malik Nabers a little bit with our next question of his, you know, quotes after the game. The Deonte Banks play, I can't get over it. Like, I cannot believe how bad that was. Like, and we're talking about a guy who's been extremely underwhelming in Deonte Banks. Like, I almost went back and started liking tweets about people crying because I didn't like trading up for him on draft night. I almost did that, Justin. But, like, that is the worst effort on a single play that I have ever seen in my life. I've never seen anything like that. Anything like that. And it worries me that team employees are out saying, well, what about this the day after? It hurts your chances if you bench him for a quarter. You have to do something. You have to nip this in the bud. Like, I don't think Banks is this huge head case, you know, worry about player. I don't think he's disruptive to the locker room. You have to do something about that.
What were team employees saying? You don't need to name names, but what were they saying?
Oh, I'll just say Carl Banks was like, everyone talks about that play, but they don't talk about the nose tackle getting moved over 3 gaps on the first play that started the drive or the missed. It's like, we did talk about that.
It's a first-round pick.
Those are players being bad. This is the worst lack of effort I've ever. Like, it doesn't make sense. Like, it's so bad it doesn't make sense.
Jordan Riley getting his ass kicked as a day 3 draft pick.
7th round pick.
Who had terrible film. Okay, yeah, people aren't going to talk about that, but yeah, people are going to talk about a cornerback 1 who you drafted in the first round who isn't remotely playing up to that standard besides 1 game this year. So yeah, people are going to talk about that, and they should talk about that. Yeah, that's a little absurd to me, man. I will say this for Brian Daboll, because that's what the question's about. Questions about Daboll losing the locker room or guys not trying. I don't think this team has an effort problem, at least not yet. The fact that Daboll was able to keep the locker room together after last year, I think, is really impressive, especially with the whole divide. And I'm sure everybody saw it. I'm sure everybody in the team saw it, or they did a good job of hiding it, of the divide that Brian Daboll and Wink Martindale had together, and there was basically a civil war of power that was happening in that building last year, and the players played through it. Nobody gave up, and that was great, and that's one of the reasons why Daboll really cemented that his job was safe, because the players didn't give up, blah, 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 blah. I don't think there's going to be an effort problem, but I would say this is more of a Deonte Banks problem than a Giants team effort problem right now, right? This is a Deonte Banks issue.
No, but you have to handle it. You have to handle this. This is again, I don't think this is some teams-wide a problem. This has to be handled. Like, you can't swipe this under the rug, chew them out in a meeting. Like, you already chewed them out in whatever meeting. There has to be some type of punishment for that play. And again, there wasn't great effort the rest of the game either. There was plenty of times where he wasn't looking to be physical at all.
So what do you think is? I think the easy thing is you bench him the first quarter against the Steelers.
That's the easy thing, because you're not significantly hurting your odds of winning that game. And it's a real deal punishment. Yeah. It's like the Thomas was late to the meeting in his rookie year. And again, we know Thomas is not like a low effort guy, but he was late to a meeting. They suspended him for the first 2 drives of the game. Yep.
Coughlin would do that all the time. I'd be like, where's Ahmad Bradshaw? Oh, well, he's missing the first quarter, or he's missing the first half because of something that he did. All right. See you then.
Make an example out of this.
But that's not going to happen.
We'll see. I don't know, man. It's the worst thing. I don't think it's because his Dale's becoming some hard ass. Like, this is so bad that I don't know. Next question.
Next question is coming from Jeff Steer. Oh, here we go. If Captain Morgan was on the Giants, would he be the QB and captain? While you are pondering that, can you read an ad? I can read an ad. I would love to read an ad. Captain Morgan, Morgan Captain. Captain Morgan. What college would Captain Morgan go to? Like the
Morgan University.
Where?
Morgan University.
Morgan University. I love it, because that's the Sunday Night Football intro. Captain Morgan, Morgan University. Or he would say what elementary school.
Excuse me, Morgan State University.
Morgan State University. And this episode is brought to you by Captain Morgan, the official spice rum of the NFL. The NFL season where legends are born on and off the field, like Captain Morgan, Morgan State University. Some are last-second plays that turn the tide and change a team's destiny, while others are friends who follow the captain from within to make a regular get-together into the stuff of legends, like every single tailgate in L16, every Sunday, every weekend. It's a good time. So grab your crew, grab a captain and cola, and make it a story to remember, because legends start when you follow the captain. Visit followthecaptain.com for more. Please drink responsibly. Captain Morgan Original Spice Rum, 35% alcohol by volume. Captain Morgan Rum Company in New York, New York. You'd be glad you did. Bobby Skinner.
Be glad you did. Next question.
Be glad you did. I'm getting a phone call from my friend, and I'm going to ignore it.
I wonder if it's Mikal Bridges made his first shot.
Oh, wow. Next question is coming from Glock Roach. At Glock_Roach. How open was Nabers really on Sunday?
He wasn't, that became a thing. He was open on some key plays. But those big plays, opportunities where actually he hasn't scored yet, were like protection issues and not Daniel Jones issues. It was mostly like third downs, or there was the John Michael Smith sack allowed was a real opportunity for a big play. Now I'm not saying the Giants hit that because Daniel Jones has missed guys deep down the field, but it was like an accurate deep pass away from a touchdown. And he was, he was being asked questions about like, stuff. He's like, my job is to run around, stay open, and catch the ball. When he was asked about like the balance of the pass versus the run game, where they ask the next question, because I want to do a little bit of talking about Malik Nabers, because Pat Leonard wrote a story basically, getting a little overreactive to some Malik Nabers stuff.
All right, Ryan Vergens at the Real Tuna 19. How do we get Pat Leonard fired before he runs Nabers out of town?
So this was because Malik Nabers in his post-game press conferences being like, I was open. Like I kept on saying I was open, right? I will say this. Pat Leonard did not run any other receivers out of town. Odell and Kadarius Toney drove themselves out of town. So that's one. But here's the thing. As much as Pat Leonard is overreacting and looking for this story and stuff like that, which I agree, Daboll should go tell Malik Nabers that it isn't necessary to, say, oh, well, I was open. Like, he doesn't need to make it public, but, like, there's no reason for that. Just make some shit up. Give these, these reporters nothing. Like, it's small tomatoes. It's small potatoes now, but it's unnecessary. So this is where it's like the Daboll stuff of, like, when you talk about Banks, this is something he should go nip in the bud right now. Like, hey, Malik, you're an awesome player for us. We really value you. We don't need you to be pouty to the media, people begging for a story on a losing team saying I'm open over and over again. Okay, we don't need you being pouty and like, I was open. I don't know. I was open. And everyone cries when you point out this shit with rookies, and then when it snowballs into something else, just nip it in the bud. It's not a big deal. Nip in the bud. Say that. Because, it creates bullshit. Just give them nothing answers. It's as simple as that. Media cannot drive Malik Nabers out of town. Nabers will be driven out of town if the Giants stay losers and he's disruptive, and there is 100% red flags that are there from LSU if you want to avoid them. But if they win, they won't matter. And if he's not totally disrupting the team, it's not a big enough deal to worry about with his capabilities because he's a special player. But media can't drive anybody out of town. Just don't give the media anything to write about. It's as simple as that. Just give them stupid, nothing answers.
So then I'll play devil's advocate here for a second. So if the media isn't going to drive him out of town, and the lack of quarterback or the lack of Giants having a good offense is going to drive Malik, if it does drive Malik Nabers out of town. And Malik Nabers, I have a feeling, is a type of player that maybe you want to handle with kid gloves. Why not just let him say that he's open?
Because that snowballs into interviews with Josina Anderson
and Lil Wayne.
And you don't need to hand him with kid gloves. He's a grown man. Just say, hey, we don't need to be 100% honest with the media. Just make up some bullshit answer the same way Bobby Okereke or whoever else does.
Yeah, I guess you would approach it.
We don't need a pouty media session saying I'm open over and over again. Again, is that a huge deal? Absolutely not. It's not a big deal. But you don't want the snowball into something 3 years from now. And that's how it happens. It always starts with little bullshit. And then by year 3, year 4, it's not. Now, here's the thing. If the Giants win games, no one gives a shit. Right? His media sessions are great. He's funny. He's open. He's honest. And that's the most important thing, winning plays. And you don't blame your best players for the reason you're losing games, which is what bad teams do. But you don't, again, every player is different. You don't want him turning into something that's disruptive in year 5, which is what Odell was. He was a disruptive divider of the team in year 5.
Yeah, so I guess the approach is, yeah, you are open. And this is, we're not saying to not have that confidence, but just don't say it.
You can even say it and clean it up. Like, yeah, it's there's times where I'm open, but like it's about making, getting back there the next play and getting open again, right? Like, it's like I don't feel like I've had a bad performance, but this is a team game and that's what matters at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right. Like, it's, again, not a small deal, but I did want to talk about it because the Giants suck right now, and that's what I wanted to talk about at the end of the show.
Yep.
Is media does not drive people out of town. Again, not a big deal, but not a big deal was talked about on the first and second and third and fourth, fifth thing with Kadarius Toney and with Odell Beckham, and I was one of them. But it snowballs. So hopefully, we just don't need that. We don't need pouty media sessions saying I'm open over and over again. All right, Justin, is that it?
That's it, Bobby Skinner.
That was a long mailbag pod. How about that? Was it long enough for Mikal Bridges to score?
No, I don't think he's scored yet.
Yeah. Want to go a little longer? I don't want to be here till Friday. All right, we'll see you then. Until then, let's go Big Blue.